the year by numbers. Now, I don't want you to come up with what the numbers are, but what are the metrics that you would use that would summarize your year by numbers, paint by numbers, no, year by numbers. And I want to give you a few of mine just to give you, not that these should be yours, but these are some of the ones that I've used for myself. So number of hours, I track my hours every week. That comes from my consulting days. I still do that in my entrepreneurial world. And so I know how many hours I spend in one-on-one conversations with people every year. That to me is a huge measure of what my year was like. Because it's like, so last year, I think I had 470 hours of one-on-one conversations with people. I keep track of my sleep. So how many hours of sleep do I get? Or what's my average hours of sleep per night? When I left Accenture, I was getting 5.5. Since then, I'm getting 7.5. Just a different world that I'm in. And I wish I'd thought of that when I was in consulting, that the sleep was more important than the work, because my work gets better if I think about my sleep. But I wasn't thinking like that. Number of sweat lodges in a year is big for me. I count those. Number of productive hours I have in a year. So those are some of the things. But also, I keep track of my days. So I have 10 scores at the end of every day that I rate myself on. And then at the end of the year, I can count up how many perfect 100-point days did I have? How many perfect days did I have? So there might be a lot of different ways to think about your metrics. I just wanted to throw a few other ones in there. Oh, another one I wrote down here: number of days spent outside of my country. Not because that's a huge success factor, but for me personally, that's an indicator of how I explore the world. And that's important to me. So I'm just trying to give you different ideas of like, oh, what could be some of your metrics? And some of them you may not track right now, but that's okay. Some of those you might be like, oh, this is a metric. I'm not going to count it for 2022, but I'm going to try to count this in 2023. Cool? All right, metrics. We're moving along here. The next one is, and this is a good one to spend some time on, what are this year by accomplishments. So just start writing down your accomplishments for the year and make a list. What I would suggest is that you go back to your calendar, your Outlook, and look at, because right now, you're going to be very recency effect. You're going to be like, oh, what happened in December and November? It's going to be like, what happened in January, February as well. So go back and look at those. But what's your year by accomplishments? This is so important to do. So if you spend some time after this, as you will, look at your accomplishments for the year. High performers do not celebrate their accomplishments. Oh, I got this thing done. Not move on. It's like, I get it, but let's go back and celebrate. Knowing you all, Amber, you have a big one, of course. Keziah, you've got a lot of expansion of your business in terms of accomplishments this year, which is great to celebrate those. I know in some ways we get on with that. It's like, oh, but it didn't do this. I had to let these people go, or blah, 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 and all that kind of stuff. It's like, but it was a growth. Those are growth. Those are great accomplishments. Again, I'll give you some of mine, not because mine are great, but just to give you an idea of what to look for in yours as well. So I have a Wednesday night spirituality series that I help moderate and conduct. We did 52 weeks of that. So we did that all year. Wisdom Council, Delphi Wisdom Council for sure is one of them. Taught 16 weeks at Purdue on career readiness, which I'm very proud of. I did 2 podcasts this year, James Laughlin and Sean Butner. I did his podcast. So that's huge for me too. So, doing some of those kind of things too. Cincinnati visit to visit my siblings. I hadn't seen my sister in 3-4 years. So it was great to see them. And then also I celebrated my 5th anniversary of leaving Accenture this past year. So those are different kinds of things that I looked at and I said, oh,